Welcome back to the group, everybody. It is week 3, and we're going to be reading through Joshua chapter 4 together. Now, I hope that you've taken the time to become familiar with the details of our Forward Initiative, either through the website or the brochure. Now, these are guides for you and can answer most of the questions that you might have. Just go to christchurchcamden.com. You'll find the Forward button there. But if there's something that you still would like to talk about, I am more than happy to answer any questions. And we can start the conversation by sending me an email to connect@forcamden.com. And I want to remind you of our Advanced Commitment event on October the 16th. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to combine food and worship and prayer, and we'll make our commitments then. And if you would like to help lead the way, this is an event where you can go first and do that. Now, it's really important to be familiar with the side of this initiative in which we talk about advancing our mission, namely the construction of a facility, because I think it really ties in with what we're going to see today from the story and the journey of Joshua and the Hebrew people. Real quick, so far we've seen Joshua as the new leader of the Hebrew people. Takes over after Moses has passed away, and God's filled him up with strength and courage. He has the promise that the future is theirs. No one can stop them, and God himself goes with them. And then last week, they really needed that courage to move from one side of the Jordan River to the other side, right? The entire nation needed to get across this wide, deep, fast-moving river so they could step into the future that God had for them. And you may remember it was the priest who actually went first. They lead the way, and they took that courageous step of faith into the unknown. And then once they took that step, God stopped the water. And we finished last week by asking this question: what step of faith can you take today so that you can go forward into what God has for you? And I believe that's probably prompted some great discussions for you, for your family, maybe in your group, or maybe just in your prayers with God personally. And when we finished last week, we left the priest standing in the middle of the river while the entire nation crossed over. Now, I don't know how long that takes, probably quite a while. And when they finally all make it over, they do something fascinating. Now, you're going to read about this, Joshua chapter 4. They select one leader, from each tribe, 12 men total, to go back into the river and get a rock or a stone, and they're going to pile them up and make an altar, a memorial. They take these stones from the middle of the river. And remember the Ark of the Covenant, right? The symbol of the power and the promise and the presence of God had been positioned right in the center. And it's from this location that they'll draw these stones. Now, I've heard this story my whole life. I could probably tell you most of the details just from memory. But as I was reading it this week, something really grabbed my attention that maybe I hadn't really thought about much before. You'll actually read in chapter 4 that after they set up the 12 stones as a memorial on the bank of the river, Joshua has them set up a second set of 12 stones in the middle of the river. Now, because the priests are still standing there holding the Ark of the Covenant, the waters have still stopped flowing. It's almost like the one memorial on land represents the goal, right? The promise that they've walked into. And the other memorial represents the spot where God actually did his work. And honestly, you're never going to be able to see those 12 in the middle unless the river dries up. It's the stones on the shore, though. I think the stones on the shore were there to trigger a memory marked by the stones in the river that would remind them of God's power and presence and promises. It's the stones on the shore that future generations would find. And this is how it probably works, right? A family might be out on a walk, a mother and a child, and they might come across these massive stones, and kids would do what kids do. Hey, what is that? Why is that there? What happened here? And a parent familiar with the story, or maybe who lived the story, could say, well, you see, that's where they trusted God. That's where they moved forward by faith. And what looks like just a pile of rocks to someone was a reminder of a significant thing that God had done. And here comes the question I think we have to wrestle with this week, and it's challenging. And I really don't want you to fly right past it, because I think if you spend some significant time thinking about it, praying about it, even go back to last week's question about your next step of faith, and in light of that answer, and now discussing it with your group, how do you respond to how God is leading you right now? Okay, could literally change the life of someone in the future. And here's the question: what are you doing right now by faith that will be worth telling the next generation about? And I don't want to try to even tell you what that answer might be. When we do talk about the generosity side of the Forward Initiative, we're talking about giving to our regular ministries that allow us to do excellent things like Christ Kids and Chaos, our student ministry. We're talking about funding our Hope 1312 foster care ministry that we're just now starting to scratch the surface of the impact I believe we can have. We're certainly talking about the construction of a facility that truly is a gift for our community that would see families find help, kids and teens maybe a point of connection that truly might be building a bridge that they could cross over. Maybe they will have something to point to, like a facility that was a gift. Or maybe they'll just simply have an act of kindness cause them to say, what could have possibly gotten into you to do that? So you need some reminders, okay? A memorial of some sorts that allows you to remember the power and the presence and the promises of God that you've experienced in your life. And you need to move forward by faith to take a step where you trust God so that future generations will be able to look back on your faith journey and say, this must have been the Lord. So here's the question again, and I'm pretty excited about where it might lead you. What are you doing right now by faith that will be worth telling the next generation about?